Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again.
It's time for the J. Craig 5, maybe 10-minute movie review. Lego Movie Part 2 is directed by Mike Mitchell, who I am familiar with because of a Disney superhero movie starring Kurt Russell called Sky High, which I simply adore. So I was excited to see his name attached to this. It's written by the same group who brought us the first Lego movie, Lord and Miller. So their vibe is all over this movie. And it stars everyone who was in the first. You have your Chris Pratt, your Elizabeth Smart, and Will Arnett, and everybody who was in the first is in the second, except for Will Ferrell. His voice is in the movie, but he is not in the movie. The mom is a nice surprise as well, so I won't ruin who that one is, but it's a nice surprise. Now, this is a sequel, right? Now, the first one ends exactly where this one begins. So at the end of the first movie, the daughter is welcomed into the basement to play with the Legos, just like he is, right? The kid, the son. So that's where the first one ends. You know that there's going to be a sequel, and now we got the sequel, and it starts exactly right there. Okay, we see the kind of a flashback of the daughter's Legos arriving, and then there's a fast forward. So there's years later after this happened, and to me, I like this movie. I really loved Lego 1. I really loved Lego 1. I think there's a uniqueness to that you're never going to be able to surpass now because of the cat's out of the bag. But this movie felt just a little bit more of the same. And what I mean by that is we already know the kids are playing with the toys. We already know the daughter is the one who's interrupting his particular playtime. We know that. So it loses that uniqueness. At the end of the first movie, when we find out that Lord Business is his dad and the Kraken's the glue and what the glue represents, it's a really awesome story, and the way it opens up and you figure everything out, it's fantastic. So you lose that in this movie, and you lose that uniqueness. You know all this going in, so you lose that special aspect of it. And while it's very entertaining, it is very funny, I just felt like it was just more of the same. Yeah, I know it's a sequel. It's supposed to be more of the same. But let's look at Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3 are fantastic movies, but the first one's uniqueness is not lost on the other two. We already know there's a special aspect there. We already know it. We're introduced to it. But the stories got better. The stories got better. And with Lego Movie 2, I thought it didn't get any better. I thought it just was more of the same. And I was waiting for something special to happen, something unique that would make this movie, obviously just stand alone. And it didn't. It just was more of the same. Now, I really did like the story, the message of the story, the theme of working together, the brother and sister playing together and not fighting anymore so that they can accomplish a goal. Now, I'm seeing this a lot in movies, especially this year. I've seen a couple movies that have this theme, especially at the end of last year as well. This idea of working together. I have to feel that this is brought on by our awesome political climate right now. Two parties fighting at each other. There's no middle ground. It's my side, it's your side. You're right, I'm wrong. And there's just no compromise. And I think that's a reaction, and this movie is a reaction to that, is that we need to work together. We need to find a way to get over our differences and find a way to play together so we can achieve a goal, right? And I think that's a really cool message. And the kids loved it. It's a kids movie first and foremost, but the adults have to have something, right, to be entertained by. And there's always a lot of good adult humor, so there's a lot of pop culture references, and I mean a lot of pop culture references. The first one had a lot. This one went really overboard. I mean, you got the DeLorean, you got Velma from Scooby-Doo, you got a bunch of Batman references from old school stuff, and then you even have Beetlejuice. So there's a lot of good stuff in this movie as far as those references that made me giggle throughout, which kept me entertained. But again, I was just waiting for something special to happen that was a little more unique. Now, the other thing about this movie that I think I downgrade a bit on it is who they were focusing on. Now, the first movie is Emmett's story. It's Emmett's. That's his story to grow with. It's his story to become the master, or to become the one. Now, in this movie, it's not his story anymore, even though he does have growth to do still. He's on a side quest. This is really Wild Styles' story. This is Wild Styles' story, and I love that because I really like the fact that they did that with The Incredibles 2. That was Elastigirl's story. This is now Wild Styles' story, but instead of really honing in and getting into her character, they had a lot of Batman stuff, and I get tired of the Batman. He's funny in doses. In the first movie, he comes in, he comes out, he comes in, he comes out. It's just a little bit there, a little bit here, and he's gone. In this movie, it's a little too much front and center. He got his own movie after the first Lego movie, and I was a little bored of that after a while. I don't need to see that much of the Will Arnett Batman. I think he's better in doses. So I think they shouldn't have focused on him as much as they did. So at any rate, that's my negative on the movie. Is I think they could have done a little bit more with Wildstyle and made her character have the proper growth that Emmett did in the first movie. But Batman stole the show a little bit, like he always does. So at any rate, I enjoyed it. It's fun. It's just not as great as I was hoping. But then again, what sequel really is? So I hope you enjoyed this movie review for Lego Movie Part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and like over here and go see some movies. We'll see you next time.